It's time for ACC Central, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Monty Taylor, Micah Butel, and Nick Dioli.
Welcome back, ACC fans. Still no Nick Dioli. He's slinging sandwiches. But we still have Baseball Micah and a lovely beard. He has spent this weekend, but at the time of this recording, with Jake McKeever. So he already apologized to me in advance for any mess ups he makes because the contagious nature of Jake's errors tends to affect other people. Micah, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Spending a weekend with Jake is like spending a weekend with your buddy from college who reverts back to his college self. Like
you didn't know Jake in college.
Correct. But like we're both adults, right? But the pure disorganization of what that was, because we were supposed to hang out, talk about our college baseball stuff, and we did a little bit of that. But then we went to the hot tub that he had. Then we went to the gym for like an hour and a half. I'm like, what is like I did not sign up to push sleds last night, Monty, and I'm pushing sleds at 10 o'clock at night at some corporate gym that Jake works at. So, and then this morning I'm up at like 9 o'clock thinking, wow, I slept in. And Jake didn't wake up till like 11:30. So,
Classic.
But it's okay,
Jake.
Monty, because I'm happy because, Monty, have you ever had Culver's?
I have not. It's on my list.
There's some in Houston, and I'm so excited. That was my lunch today. So I'm full with cheese curds and butter burgers, so I'm good to go.
Yeah, on my way to Omaha, that's going to be a stop, I think, because there's a ton of them on the way.
You mean a stop for us on the way to Omaha?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, we also at CBC released our top 25. FSU is ranked number 6. Micah, where did you have them?
Number 4.
I believe I had them at 5. So I had them top 5. You had them top 4. Other people, I guess, had them a little bit lower. I think you had Clemson 3, right? So they weren't your second best.
Correct.
Oh no, they were because you had UVA ranked lower. So, yeah. But here we are with number 6, Florida State. Let's just jump right into it and pull it up here. All right. So some major departures. These are just some of the names. I mean, jumps out at you. ACC Player of the Year, James Tibbs. Cam Smith, who is the Astros' number 1 prospect now, since he was traded as part of the Kyle Tucker trade with the Cubs. But a lot of guys that they're going to miss. Yeah,
like I'm curious, Monty, who is the biggest loss in your opinion? Like, is there? Because like you look at what they also bring in. And it's kind of interesting because it feels like probably losing Tibbs is the biggest. Obviously, he's ACC Player of the Year as well. But like Cam Smith, I mean, I guess if you're pretty comfortable in Cal Fisher, then you're probably not not upset you lose Cam Smith, but maybe you're a little bit more comfortable about that position. I mean, I guess it feels like it's a lot of losses, Monty, but it also doesn't feel like it's as impactful as some of the teams we've already done previews for.
Yeah, and that's why I think we both have them ranked still number 5, because normally when you lose this kind of talent, I mean, they lose their 2 through 5 hitters right there, Tibbs, Smith, Dinges, and Farrer. Then you lose 2 guys from your rotation. After Leiter went down, you lose your closer in Brennan Oxford. Shout out to Brennan Oxford. He's a friend of the show, right?
He's the one that got me this jersey right here.
Yep. So shout out Brennan Oxford. Big fans of the Ox man. But yeah, I don't know who's going to be the biggest loss until the playing starts because the replacements they brought in should help mitigate that. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. But speaking of those key newcomers, I mean, it's funny because one of the things about having Tibbs and Farrer in the outfield and having Max Williams in the center field is that the outfield defense was kind of a weakness. But now with the addition of Chase Williams and Gage Harrelson, you have 3 center fielders set to take the outfield for Florida State and have a really good defensive outfield.
Yeah, I mean, I love the decision to go the JUCO route. I think that's one of the more forgotten about routes in the current era of the transfer portal, where now you can grab guys that are proven at the Division I ranks, or again grab highly touted recruits maybe that just didn't see playing time somewhere else. But shout out to your dogs, Monty. So tell them I said hello. But I mean, the decision to go the JUCO route, I think, is again, look at Chase Williams, for example. I mean, he was a stud at Northwest Florida State College. Right, they get that right. I know there's a lot of like directionals in that.
I think so. I think you did. It sounds like you did. You could have just made something
the Northwest Florida State College coach. If you're watching, I'm sorry if I botched your junior college name. I will promise to be better. But between that, obviously, Gay Charleston comes in proven from Texas Tech. But I really like the choice to go the JUCO route to replace kind of that outfield, especially because, again, yeah, you have Max Williams there, but you've got options, which is going to be huge. I mean, let's call it what it is, right, Monty? Last year, Florida State's biggest issue was probably the injury bug. I mean, obviously, that was a little bit more on the pitching side than anything, but with the depth that they look like they've added in these newcomers, I mean, I think you have to feel pretty good about what they got.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about some of that pitching depth that they now have. Obviously, rotation options is going to include Cam Leiter, who, as of this recording, as far as we know, has not started to throw, but he's supposedly close. I don't want to talk too much about his injury, but he's obviously hopefully on his way back and should be an impact, but will probably not be able to be in the rotation at the beginning of the season because there's no way to stretch him out in time. But you've got an Evan Crest who is lights out from Jacksonville, and then you've got another guy, Wes Mendez, who they're really, really high on from Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Monty, I know we never want to speculate injuries or what's going on, so let's not play that game. But I do want to ask you your confidence level on Cam Leiter coming back and being because last year, right, when we were in Omaha, we talked about what it's going to be like bringing him back. Like, because again, when he got hurt, it was kind of like the expectation was he might be able to catch some of the end of fall. And
when he initially got hurt, he was only we only expected him to miss a weekend start.
That's true. But as we kind of developed, right, we still it never felt like we'd be at this point, right? We're talking about spring 2025 now. Hasn't even supposedly, again, from what we know, hasn't thrown from the mound. Like, what is your confidence level that we're going to get him? Because, I ranked him preseason number 4. I'm assuming with your ranking of preseason number 5, that's assuming he comes back at least by the midway point of the season. I mean,
probably, yeah. I mean, I tried not to let that factor in too much because, again, we just didn't know anything.
So you think this is a top 5 team without him?
I think it's capable. I mean, if certain things go right, I really like the pitching depth. I mean, Jamie Arnold is going to be even better because he's. I mean, I would have been concerned if Jamie was coming back and only relying on those 2 pitches, but the fact that he's worked so hard to develop the changeup, and that it's nasty as it is, I think he's going to be even better with that pitch mix because now you've got 3 pitches to worry about. I mean, look how dominant he was with 2. I really believe in Evan Crest. After that, somebody's going to have to step up, but I do like what they've done with the bullpen and what they've brought in the bullpen. They've got a lot of options there.
I do really like the bullpen. And I think what's the best part about this bullpen is because of what happened last year. We've seen John Abraham have to step up into a midweek or a long reliever role. Connor Holtz had to do some of that. Joe Charles had to do some of that. I mean, I could be mistaken mixing up who was doing what, but it feels like Joe Charles in Omaha went 3 innings at one point, or at least sometime in the postseason, had to stretch his relief appearances out. I think that I agree with you, Monty. At least the bullpen, right, does feel like if something, if you're without Cam Leiter for a while, you might be able to get by with those midweeks being done, by committee with the bullpen almost kind of throwing some of those games, or again, giving some of these freshman arms a chance to kind of get going, because that's where I think that's probably the strength of Florida State. I mean, Monty, would you have the audacity to say this is the best bullpen in the ACC?
No.
Okay.
NC State.
Yeah.
NC State might have the best bullpen in the country, in my opinion.
That's fair. I guess that makes sense with all the guys they have. I guess, would you say would they have an argument for the second best? Or am I just, Monty, you've done a lot more of the it's full-blown deep dives. I need to go back and refresh every single team.
I really like Wake Forest bullpen. I know you're not as high on them. I really like UNC's. I like Duke's. Clemson, as we just went over, might This is similar, I think, to Clemson's, where I think it's deep and it's really good, but it's not quite in the upper echelon. It's probably second tier ACC, top like 5, 6.
I guess why I feel so good about them is maybe not the pure like, okay, power rankings, bullpen 5, 6. It's the fact that we, based off what we're kind of like the biggest question mark, right? Cam Leiter, is he going to come back? When's he going to come back? Is he going to be 100% when he comes back? We've seen a list of these arms have to play that role already, and that got them to the Final Four of Omaha. So I think that's the only reason why maybe I'm so high on them comparatively. Again, we're going at the power rankings, right? Because you're right, NC State's got, I mean, literally dudes or dude-ins, and but you've got a list of guys that, I mean, can do what I would say is worst case scenario right now for Florida State, which is being down a guy like Cam Leiter. Yeah,
and the other thing you got to remember that I've got to remind myself when you're looking at the right side of the screen, 2 or 3 of the guys from the left side of the screen are going to be in the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what they want to, whether they want to make one of the weekend rotation guys a midweek or whether they want to go with somebody else and do an opener or whatever and, use that arm out of the bullpen. But, 2 or 3 of those guys on the left side are going to be, I guess you take out Cam Leiter, it's going to be 1 or 2 guys that are going to go to the bullpen, but that adds a lot of experience. I think Mason Martinez, he's been listed as a potential weekend rotation guy, but I think he's going to be the bullpen ace. He's really, really good. Jacob Marlowe, we talked about the injury on the pitching side. I mean, Jacob Marlowe had to miss all of last year because of open heart surgery last fall, or the fall of 2023. And I loved watching him up on the Cape. He looked really, really good. He even got some starts up there and looked really good. These redshirt freshmen like Peyton Manka and David Davila, they weren't redshirted because they weren't good. They were redshirted because they were injured. You get one of the Barretts back. I can't remember which one was out last year. But you talked about that experience from John Abraham, Connor Holtz, Joe Charles, Brady Luck, Hudson Rowe, and I think those guys are all going to take a step forward. So, I mean, I'm sitting here listing some teams that might have better bullpens, but I could very well be wrong once we get into the season.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do with Joey Volini. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I didn't go back to the pronunciation guides, but coming over from USF, it sounded like he is vying for a weekend rotation spot. He kind of looks like maybe a front runner for like the guy that gets to start against Florida in the midweek or something like that. He's got that 3/4 arm slot. I went and watched a couple of his outings, not outings like full blown, but like highlights from outings at USF, and like. He looks like one of those names that, again, he's at the bottom of your list. I know you don't rank them in any certain order or anything like that, but he's someone that I did not know really anything about until about 3 or 4 days ago. And I really like what I see. And, obviously seeing the notes from the fall ball reports from D1, your notes as well, Monty, like he's someone that I think if he kind of hits his potential could be the difference in filling that void while they kind of get lighter going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they like the lefties. I think it's, it seems like they really, really like Wes Mendez. I'm not sure, how I feel about him potentially being in there, but they really like him. I'd rather go kind of Volini, but Mendez has such stuff that it's going to be hard, I think, to. Did
he start at Ole Miss, or what was his role at Ole Miss?
He was mostly a bullpen guy. Okay. I mean, he only made 2 starts. He did pitch multiple innings when he went out there, but yeah. But he's got really good stuff. Just the control's not great. So that's going to be a factor. And I'm always a guy that I don't care how good your stuff is. I need you to throw strikes. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, it drives me nuts when, people are enamored with this stuff, but they can't throw strikes. Cause walking guys just drives me nuts. So
you walked in 3 runs, but hey, you got a nasty curveball. You got someone to swing and miss on.
Yeah. There's a lot of SEC guys that like throw like 99, 100, but then sometimes they can't hit the zone.
Talk that trash, Monty. Talk that trash. So send that to Jake right now.
I mean, the SEC does have the higher echelon, stuff guys, but I like some of the guys at LSU that I've seen over the years that are just uber talented, but then can't harness it. I don't know how I'd manage being an LSU fan watching that when they struggle, because it's so frustrating when you can't hit the strike zone, but that's not
especially in the current landscape where someone's probably fronting $20K to keep that guy at LSU.
Right, exactly. Yeah, good point. But
like that's my car payment just gone.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm always a big fan of they may not be top end draft guys, but if you can throw strikes and paint the corners and mix your pitches, the UVA standard of 2023 with the Edgington and the Parkers, guys that could just really get out somehow, despite not having the best stuff. I'm a big fan of those type of pitchers rather than guys that struggle with control command. But it is nice to see a nasty pitch. So here's the potential pitching staff that I've gone with. I kind of went with your kind of idea here with Valini being the midweek guy. Obviously, I did not get to slot Cam Leiter in there because, again, it doesn't sound like he'd be stretched out and ready to roll by the time the season started. So this is the pitching staff I would expect opening day and kind of your key relievers on there. And, there's a number of relievers who could end up being vital parts that are not listed on there. But I think Mason Martinez might be a relief ace. He was kind of one of the relief aces for Virginia Commonwealth last year with Brian Curley, who's now at Georgia. I mean, and we keep talking about John Abraham. I expect a big year out of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, between him, Holtz, and Charles, I think they're all poised to take a step forward because last year we saw some of their good outings. We also saw some really rough ones from them. I think my hope for them is really just to see more consistency. I think that's probably the biggest thing for Florida State from that bullpen standpoint is, again, I saw John Abraham shove against Florida in the midweek, but then we also saw him struggle in big spots as well down the stretch. So it'll be interesting to see what we get from them.
I mean, it's crazy for Abraham. I mean, as a freshman, a true freshman, he won 2 games in the ACC tournament and made an Omaha start. Yep. That's kind of bonkers for a freshman. I mean, that shows they have a lot of faith in him. I know the Omaha starts kind of because they were kind of running out of arms, but I mean, still counts, and that's still who they went with.
It wouldn't have been in that situation if the umpire knew what a swing was, though.
Yeah, good point. I forgot about that already. I whenever I think of Tennessee, I think.
Don't worry, Monty. Last night, Jake decided to put me through 3 hours of watching random Wheels highlights of the NCAA tournament last year, and I'm like, I enjoyed it, but I was like. He was conveniently playing a lot of SEC games that were beating ACC teams. Like it made me relive the Georgia Tech game last night, Monty. That was really painful.
I'm surprised you didn't leave, but I mean, somebody that we didn't really talk about enough. I mentioned Evan Crest. I think is going to be really, really good. He's going to kind of be, Carson Dorsey like. I mean, I don't think he's going to go to the bullpen like Dorsey did, but how Dorsey was down the stretch as a starter was phenomenal. I think Evan Crest can slide into that and kind of be that underrated arm behind Jamie Arnold and hopefully at some point Cam Leiter.
Do you know, I don't know if you talked to anybody, Monty, you may not have. Was there any talks about why his regression was what it was last year? Because obviously he was a stud freshman his first year, and then last year he took a step back. His ERA went from like a 2-something to 6 or something like that. Like, were there any reasons why, or any, was there anything that of maybe what the reasoning might be for that? I mean, obviously, I think coming into this staff, I do think he's going to get, I won't say better coaching, but you know what I mean, like more opportunities to develop with just what's available at Florida State compared to Jacksonville. But I mean, that's my only concern with him being the Saturday guy right now is. Which version are we going to get? Because last year he struggled in most of his outings for Jacksonville.
Yeah, it sounds like he just had some issues locating and leaving the fastball out there. The fastball didn't have a ton of shape. And, they've really worked hard on, adding a cutter to help with that. And, use the slider and the curveball, the breaking balls a little bit more, kind of, not leave that fastball out there as much. I think that'll help a bunch for him. Other than that, without having seen too much of what he was doing at Jacksonville, I can't really say, but obviously talking to Micah Posey and in one of our all interviews and hearing about it from beat writers at Florida State and, stuff like that. I think he's set to have a big bounce back year. I mean, you saw Cam Leiter when he transferred in, what he was able to do after having a so-so year as a freshman at Central Florida. So, I have faith in the pitching or the coaching staff over there at Florida State.
That's true. If there's one thing we can put our faith in, right? They're probably not grabbing a kid they don't think they can mold back to the peak version of themselves. Yeah. So,
let's get into the lineup. As we talked about initially, a lot of guys missed, but sorry, the puck just decided to rip something behind me. But the catching staff here, I mean, look at this. Jackson West, I'm really excited about Jackson because, he was quietly really good. I mean, he split most of his time last year until it got towards down the stretch, and then he was the guy. But I thought, did really well. I mean, he walked more than he struck out. He only had 12 extra base hits, only 3 homers, but he's put on like 30, 40 pounds this offseason of muscle. And it's shown with some of what he's done in the fall. I think he's going to go shooting up some draft boards as a catcher because of what he's added to that power profile. I'm really excited about Jackson West. And then obviously, you want to talk about Hunter Carnes?
I mean, I can. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm just so excited for Jackson West that, like, yeah, we can talk about Hunter Carnes if you want, but Monty, I'll actually kind of turn that over to you. I feel like you're more.
Go ahead and talk about Jackson West then. I love me some Jackson West.
I mean, you kind of nailed it, right? He was the most underrated player in that run last year for the Noles. Like he not only was he became the everyday guy for the most part, but he also he had that clutch factor. It kind of felt like if you put him up in a tough spot, he was going to find a way to get it done. I might be misremembering things correctly, but I almost remember him making a couple big stops on some pitches that were getting away. Like he did a great job defensively, kind of saving some situations as well for Florida State down the stretch. I think if I remember correctly, in that Virginia game in Omaha, there was a pitch with the runner where Virginia had runners in scoring position, and that ball was just crossed him up, but he did enough to kind of prevent the run from scoring, kind of holding the runner at third, and then obviously they got either a pop out or a strikeout or whatever it was to end the inning. But for this Florida State team, I mean, to have someone like him who can kind of again guide this pitching staff, but also provide some offense. I mean, it's exciting to say the least.
Absolutely, and he's going to be splitting the catching time again, but I don't think he's going to be out of the lineup. I think he and Hunter Carnes are going to switch back and forth between catching and DHing, so they're both going to be in the lineup, I think, because Hunter Carnes is an absolute stud. I mean, Link Jarrett's is claiming that it's the best freshman bat he's ever had, so he's going to be in the lineup, but he's also going to be a draft-eligible sophomore, so you want to get what you can out of him very quickly. I think he's going to be an absolute star, and I think he's going to get plenty of playing time right off the bat with Jackson West. Maybe have Jackson West catch a lot more at the beginning of the season as Hunter Carnes kind of adjusts to the college catching game, because that's not an easy thing to do, and then have Carnes DH. But, another freshman who's going to start, I think, is Miles Bailey at first base. He's another guy that's going to be draft eligible as a sophomore, and this guy hits moonshots. Have you seen some of the clips that he hit in the fall?
Yeah, that's why you caught me off guard, Monty, when we talked about Jackson West. You're like, you want to talk about Hunter Carnes? I'm like, I spent more time looking at a different freshman that's just a little bit further up the line.
There you go.
Miles Bailey looks like an absolute stud, dude. Like, he kind of gives me like Henry Ford type vibes from a offensive standpoint. Like, we'll come in this year and kind of put the country on notice. I mean, the pop that he has, I mean, seeing some of the home runs from the fall, I mean, those things weren't just like getting over the fence. Those things are gone. Those are maybe 10 to 15 rows up in Omaha kind of shots. I mean, smoked them. Obviously, you're replacing a key piece, right, in that spot. But to have someone like him with so much potential, I mean, I think the biggest question's got to be coming from the defensive side. I mean, obviously, first baseman, not to say that they're not important defensively, because they are, but it is be interesting to kind of see, because that's the one thing I don't know too much about Monty. Maybe you know a little bit more, but like whether he's kind of the defensively sound first baseman as well, or if he's more just there because his bat's just so good that you can't have him out of the lineup.
From what I understand, he's at least decent. Decent glove out there. But we shifting to the rest of the infield, and you've got some experience back there in the middle of the diamond. I think the key to this Florida State team, and once we get, when you bring in Max Williams, is the the four guys that you return in the middle of your field, obviously I think Max is going to shift over to right field, but initially, last year he was a center fielder. Those four guys that are now juniors, Jackson West, Drew Faroe, Alex Lodis, and Max Williams, those were your role guys behind the big bats. These are four guys that are going to have to step up and have big years for Florida State. And I think they're all capable. They're all stars. Alex Lodis, we love Alex Lodis, friend of the show. He's one of two Lodises starting in the ACC at shortstop. And then Drew Faroe, I'm excited for both those guys. The big thing is Cal Fisher going to be the guy at third base? Obviously, you brought in a JUCO guy named, like Carter McCulley, who's going to be big. But with Cal Fisher, what he was able to do last year in very limited time, inconsistent playing time, he'd get a weekend start here, a weekend start there, and he was still able to find consistent production throughout that. I'm really excited about him. I think he's going to be a really intriguing prospect. I think he's the shortstop of the future. When Lodis leaves, I think Cal Fisher will be the shortstop next year. But I'm a big fan of this infield.
Yeah, this infield just has that leadership that kind of, again, none of these names probably stand out. Like if we were to just go up to a random SEC fan and say Drew Farrell, Alex Lodis, or Cal Fisher, I don't know how many of them would be like, oh yeah, I know those names. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's a very veteran team that knows what it's going to take to get back to Omaha. And again, like that's production that was key last year for this team in that run to Omaha. So obviously, considering that you're trying to figure out the first base position, it's a good thing you have three guys you're very comfortable with in the other spots in the infield.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about it. Carter McCulley might not even start, and he was hitting over 300 at the JUCO level with, 25 extra base hits. That's a guy you're going to have on your bench potentially. That's a pretty nice luxury. And then, of course, you've got time to let the likes of Noah Sheffield and Jace Estes, who are also freshmen, develop. And these are highly recruited freshmen who may not see a lot of playing time this year, but are going to be able to sit behind some really, really special players.
Yeah.
There's our outfield. As far as I can guess, Gage Harrelson, Max Williams, Chase Williams, they can all play any of those positions. So this is kind of a guess of where they're going to end up based on some of the scrimmages they did. Bladen Plain is also a guy I think who could have a breakout year. He could be the starting first baseman over Miles Bailey as well. The potential there, another JUCO guy, and then Brody Lier had a really big time summer for them and looked really good in the fall and could push for playing time as well.
I think Gage Harrelson should have to change his name to Williams just so we have the Williams outfield.
Yeah, right.
But no, on a serious note, I think my biggest fear, Monty, with the outfield is it doesn't feel as deep as it did, last year. That was kind of a strength of Florida State. It was almost kind of a negative on the other side, though, because you had some really good guys sitting on the bench in that outfield. But, obviously you lose Jamie Ferrer, you lose James Tibbs. I think I'm going to botch his first name because I botched it all last year. Diamez Ross. Yeah, like losing him, I think, was one of the more painful ones this past year for me in the portal because he was such a great kid. I got to see him firsthand with how he interacted with fans and just, his attitude was fantastic considering we knew what he was capable of, but there were just so many dudes in the outfield that he just didn't get his chance. But it stinks because I think this year he would have gotten his chance to be the everyday guy. But,
well, he got his chance. The problem was he had that minor injury, and then Max Williams took it, basically. Took the opportunity and never gave it up.
That's true. And that's, it goes back to if he would have been back this year, I'm not saying that he beats out any of the two guys, but you probably are placing him over Chase Williams in center, or maybe you're not. Maybe you aren't, Monty. I don't know. I was high on him. I really liked him. So, I just think he would have been a starter in the outfield there. Maybe Max Williams goes back to center then, and you put Ross over, in right. I don't know how I'm not going to say how to break that down, but I do think, again, we've done these, this is the 5th team we've done this for, Monty. This is probably the least deep outfield we've looked at. And I know some of these teams we've looked at, right, it's been we have 3 names listed because we just genuinely have no clue who's going to go there. So it probably makes your job harder, right? When you're at least you kind of have an idea of your 3 are.
I think these 5 players listed here are studs. I think Yeah, I think all 5 guys on there, but I think Chase Williams is going to have a monster year. He's going to be, I think, the leadoff guy, and he's electric on the base paths. And he can hit for power. He can leg out. I mean, how many stolen bases did he have last year? He was he had 29 stolen bases at the JUCO level. This is a guy that's gonna make some things happen. I'm really excited about Chase Williams. He was one of the guys I highlighted in my sophomore breakouts for Just Baseball, along with Cal Fisher. I'm really excited about him. Max Williams, Bladen Plain, I think is a guy that's not listed as a starter for me. That could be the guy that everyone knows who he is in a couple months because of what he could potentially bring. I mean, this is a JUCO guy that absolutely barreled the baseball. I mean, he walked as many times as he struck out. He had 47 RBIs. He hit 370 at Pensacola State. 6'5", 215. Lot of power to all fields.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to my original point when we first got on. I love the JUCO route. It's the positive and the negative, Monty. It's hard to find highlights, JUCO highlights. So it's like, I'm not saying that's part of the reason why maybe I'm so scared about the outfield is like I just didn't get to see as much going back, and great job on you, Monty, for deep diving these even as the way you did. But it doesn't matter. We're all in on Florida State. We're ready to. We're excited to pack these hats to Omaha, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And this nice jersey.
Is that the nicest thing in your closet? Like, if you're going on a nice date, Monty, you should wear that. I think that might be the sharpest thing you got.
I don't know if the women would agree, but who knows?
Ladies, hit him up. Most eligible bachelor in college baseball, Montgomery Taylor.
There you go. But yeah, this is the potential lineup here for Florida State and the potential batting order. From what I looked at with the batting order, I'm not confident that this is going to be the opening day order at all. I like Chase Williams in the leadoff, but after that, I was kind of just trying to do what kind of made sense with some of the, the lefty righty matchups and, some of that stuff. So don't take my projected batting order too much to heart. It was the best I could do, and we'll see how close I am on February 14th.
Yeah, go ahead and just print it on the lineup card. Link Garrett, if you're watching now, go ahead, write this down for your lineup card, turn it in February 14th, and that way, if it doesn't work, you can blame Monty.
There you go. But yeah, I really like the balance you've got there. I mean, especially, Jackson West, I think could be a cleanup guy, but if you're going left, righty, left at 3, 4, 5, Cal Fisher is a guy who could play cleanup. And I did see him hit cleanup in a couple of fall lineups. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, at the beginning of the year, I don't see Miles Bailey and Hunter Carnes necessarily hitting up in the middle of that order, but obviously towards, as they prove it, they're going to move up the order.
Yeah, it goes back to what we've talked about in the Clemson preview, right? Like you look at this lineup and you don't see like who are you really wanting to pitch to in a situation. I mean, maybe it's Gage Harrelson, but like I want to think he's taken a step forward, right, this year. There's not a lot. I mean, Hunter Carnes, I guess technically, right, because you just don't know. Like right now, we don't know what he's going to end up being at the collegiate level, but this is a lineup, again, just full of dudes that I think all can get on base. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's what, especially when you're talking about teams trying to go to Omaha and, a program like Florida State, right, who's trying to get over the hump of winning a national title. You want guys like that in your lineup that are just going to be dudes that are going to, again, what they did last year to get them to Omaha, piece together really good at bats. I mean, yeah, they had some home run balls, but they weren't living and dying off of it.
Yeah, I know. What are your thoughts here after we've pretty much done this deep dive? We're going to talk about the schedule here in a second, but do you still feel good about your number 4 ranking?
Yeah, I'm still a little scared about the whole Cam Leiter thing. I mean, it's just hard not to be, because that is a big reason why they were their number 4 for me, was because, again, I know he's not going to be here February. Like, he's not pitching an opening weekend at this point, but like, again, I'm hoping to see them in early April against Virginia. If he's not back by then, that's when I'm a little bit more concerned. That's a
perfect segue here to our calendar, because one of the key matchups I have is that Virginia series, but I also listed their road series here. Three of them. They only leave the state of Florida 4 total times before the ACC tournament. They're all in their ACC series.
They travel to California?
They do travel to California. They go to Cal.
Oh, there it is, the Cal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they go to Cal, they go to Virginia Tech, they go to Louisville, and they go to Notre Dame, I believe, is the other road trip outside the state of
I will say that end of the season slate is not great. Like in terms of like, I don't mean, sorry, I should probably clarify better. That's tough because it's at Louisville, right? And then Clemson at like your only home series or home game in May is Clemson.
False. North Carolina there at the.
Am I
the
reading
last
this
week.
wrong? This is a
so.
terribly made graphic.
I didn't
As
make
a
it.
college athletic employee, what is this graphic? Because the whole graphic is garnet, and you're telling me that the garnet back that is awful. Because I'm looking at the fonts, thinking, oh, the golds are all, which makes way more sense now. Because I'm like, this is a lot of road games.
Yep.
Yeah, this graphic is brutal. We need to talk Florida State graphic designer about like a third color somewhere in here to make this a little bit more clear. Like, goodness gracious. Wow. Okay. So anyways, not as bad as I thought. The way I was seeing it, Monty, was at Louisville, home against Clemson, at Jacksonville, at Cal, at North Carolina. I'm like, yeah. I mean, still, even if North Carolina's at home, that's still kind of like you're talking about two potential Omaha teams. I mean, I'm not as high on North Carolina as pretty much everyone else in the country is, but like that's still a top 15 team, even in my eyes. You've got my number 3 team with Clemson. You've got Cal.
At Cal, I don't think if Cal's coming to you, we're not having the same conversation. But the fact that you're only leaving the state 4 times and one of them is right before the last weekend and it's to Cal, that's tough.
Yeah, and it's in between arguably your 2 toughest back-to-back ACC weekends. Do we say that out loud? I mean, so.
By the way, the second weekend before that same weekend was a problem for Florida State. They went to Pitt and I believe lost that series.
That is true. That is
so
very true. Cal, the new Pitt for Florida State. Man, if Florida State loses 2 of 3 at Cal, I think Florida State should ban themselves from playing blue and gold teams the second last weekend of the season on the road.
Go.
Like we'll give John a call and say, hey man, you want to keep Florida State in this conference? I got an idea for you. Stop giving them those games.
Yeah. Their non-conference schedule outside of Florida doesn't really impress me all that much. Outside of the Florida series, not the state, but the University of Florida doesn't really impress me all that much. I mean, JMU is pretty good, but they've lost a lot from last year's tournament team. Penn's always a tough team. They're always in the conversation for Ivy League titles. South Florida's fine, but it's not the most beautiful.
And they've got, and just, again, right, we've said this before. We're just going to clarify it on every show so that way we never get called like we're hating on the bottom teams of the ACC because we think all 16 have the ability to make the tournament if things go right. Mm-hmm. That said, we're looking at 4 of the bottom 5 teams on their schedule in most projections, right? With Boston College, with Notre Dame, with Virginia Tech, which I am still shocked some people are ranking them. We'll get to them obviously in a later show, but I'm confused on that, Monty. I don't know if you're as confused as I am. But then Cal, obviously being one of the other ones, like, you avoid Stanford. You avoid why am I drawing a blank? You avoid Duke. Like, you avoid some of these top-end teams and are getting
NC State.
You avoid NC State. Like, you're getting some of these, again, you're also getting, make sure I'm saying this right. Yes, you're getting Wake Forest at home. You're getting Clemson at home. You're getting North Carolina at home. You're
avoiding Georgia Tech, who with the Lodi Bowl.
Yeah, that one's a crime. Honestly, we should have roasted John a lot harder on our podcast about that.
That was one of the things I was thinking about when we had him, and then I forgot to
We should send him one of those edible arrangements that looks like the poop emojis. Say, thanks for no Lodi Bowl, and then from your favorite podcasters, and just leave, and he'll know who we're talking, who sent it to him. But John, if you get that, it wasn't me. It was totally Monty.
But that's going to do it for us on Florida State. I think we both believe Florida State is a national championship contender or just an Omaha. I mean, you get to Omaha and you're a national championship contender, but obviously we try to tier those a little bit separately. But, you have to believe this is an Omaha capable team, although you're a little bit hesitant maybe without Cam Leiter.
I mean, if Cam Leiter comes back, and we're getting to the point, right? He's back in Omaha, full strength. You're telling me this team has, like, you win the first game with Jamie Arnold, or if you depending on maybe who you're playing, you're crazy enough to go, not crazy enough, but like you want to go with Cam Leiter in that one. You win that one, then you got Jamie Arnold shut up for the 2-0 game. Like, think about it. Florida State, if they call that a swing, I'm still determined on this, Monty. If they call that stupid thing a swing, I think Florida State wins the national title. I really do. I think they were set up so well. The problem was that exposed their biggest weakness was the pitching depth. So if Cam Leiter can come back healthy, I mean, man, we'll even just talk about championship series. You're telling me best 2 out of 3, Cam Leiter and Jamie Arnold are your 1-2 punch? I don't know about you, Monty. I'm feeling pretty good about that. So, I think this team, and again, like, Link Jarrett knows how to win. If there's anyone that knows, and like at this point, man, like eventually the voodoo that is this Florida State program in Omaha has to end. So
they have to accidentally like stumble into a championship at some point, right?
Yeah, right. Like at some point, something's gonna have to break because, like, you know, last year, like that's what's so frustrating was last year, like they literally got the worst luck they could have possibly gotten because of the situation that kind of was dealt. I mean, you got the best team in the country in game 1. And again, you had them beat, but didn't end up beating them. So, like, yeah, it's for Florida State fans, especially our guy Jared, who loves to come after us. Monty and I believe in you. We do not hate Florida State, I promise. Maybe this is the year, 2025.
Yeah, but that's going to do it for us on Florida State. We're both very high on Florida State. I believe they're a national championship contender. I believe they're an Omaha lock. An Omaha lock-ish.
I'm going to say a lock. Ooh,
yeah, a lock is tough, but I think they are one of the favorites from the ACC to get there. Obviously, we wouldn't have ranked them in the top 5 if not. But we'll be back tomorrow night with Georgia Tech. Buzz. Until then, it just means less.